Rozenkrojceri su filozofsko, mistično, ezoterično društvo koje je prema legendi osnovao Christian Rosenkreuz u srednjovjekovnoj Njemačkoj, a čiji su pravi počeci zabilježeni u 17. stoljeću u Njemačkoj, Rusiji i Engleskoj. Rozenkrojcersko učenje opisuje se kao mješavina egipatskog hermetizma, gnoze, mističnog kršćanstva, alkemije i kabale. Rozenkrojcerska društva postoje i danas. Kao i nekad, i danas je u središtu njihova interesa spiritualna alkemija. Kao nekad, i danas svijet ima svoju mističnu stranu. Često je posjećujemo, a večeras kroz Rozenkrojcersko društvo i ovdje, na rubu znanosti. Dobar večer. Claudio Mazzucco je, kako to kaže terminologija koja se koristi unutar Rozenkrojcerskog društva, imperator starog i mističnog reda ruže i križa, što znači prva osoba u hijerarhiji tog reda. U korištenju je kratica amork, koja dolazi od latinskog naziva anticus mysticusque ordo Rozenkrojceris, jer u svijetu postoji inače i nekoliko glavnih struja Rozenkrojcera, kao i svemu ostalom što traje nekoliko stoljeća. Dobar večer.
Thank you. Good evening.
Pa eto, kada već pričamo o stvarima koje traju nekoliko stoljeća, mnogi ljudi su čuli za pojam Rozenkrojceri, pa onda postoji izraz red ime red ruže i križa. Međutim, koliko je ta povijest u stvari obavijena velom tajne, otkuda zapravo se može bilježiti početak, možda čak i predpočetak, odnosno otkuda i sami Rozenkrojceri u vrijeme kada se svijet u 16. 17. stoljeću počeo nekako nanovo preslagivati. Isto su možda imali nekakve predtradicije, pa najjednostavnije bi bilo zapravo to formulirati kao gdje i kada je zapravo nastao red ruže i križa, odnosno Rozenkrojcersko društvo.
Yes, this is very interesting because we talk about two different levels. There is one level that is traditional. There are no documents, and we talk about the ancient Egypt, the 18th dynasty, more or less 1500 before Christ. And in that period, Egypt was a cultural center for the Western world. All the philosophers, scholars used to travel to Egypt to get more knowledge. So we know that Egypt developed the first forms of science and philosophy, and it influenced the culture of the Mediterranean Sea, and obviously it arrived up to now. So, but this is the traditional origin of the Rosicrucian teachings and the Rosicrucian order. There is an historical part of this story that we can describe because we have documents from the 17th century. In Germany, during a special period in 1614, 1615, and 1616, three documents were published communicating the existence of this order, of this movement. It was called the Fama Fraternitatis, Confessio Fraternitatis, and then the alchemical weddings of Christian Rosenkreuz. These documents explain in a symbolical way the existence of this movement that was trying to give people the tools to reform, to rebuild the society. We have to imagine that in that period Europe was facing very difficult situations. We had the wars, religion wars, we have a lot of revolution, very difficult situations. Science was born in that period, so when science was born, the world that appeared in front of human beings of that period was something completely different. So it was a period of crisis, and in that period, the documents announcing the existence of this confraternity, this order, appeared in Germany. From Germany, it moved to France, to Holland, to England, and then it developed and had different periods in this history. But the origin of, normally we talk about these two levels. Egypt as a traditional one, that reach across Europe, goes to the philosophers in Greece, and then alchemists in Europe, and the other one is the historical one in Germany with the manifestos. So this is the origin.
Može li se reći da su Rozenkrojceri u nekoj fazi možda bili nekakva vrsta tajnog društva i slično? Danas očigledno nisu kada sjedite tu s nama na televiziji, a i naravno ljudi koji zanimaju ta tema, postoje otvoreni tečajevi Amork gdje se mogu zapravo učiti razne stvari. Međutim, uvijek se neki mistični redovi povezuju sa tako nekakvim tajnim društvima, tajnim znanjima. Nekada se govori da su to tajna znanja koja se skrivaju od ljudi, nekad se govori da su to tajna znanja koja se zapravo čuvaju preko stoljeća tijekom kriznih vremena. Pa jesu li Rozenkrojceri u nekoj svojoj fazi bili neka vrsta tajnog društva? Kako se to mijenjalo s obzirom da danas su mnoge stvari puno otvorenije nego prije?
This is a very important aspect. It's true that in the past some movements had to be secret, but the secrecy was to protect people. If we go back to the 15th, 16th century, we have to imagine how the period was. And if we imagine that the 17th century started with Giordano Bruno that was burned in a square in Rome for his ideas. So it was a very difficult period. You could not develop ideas freely. So it was necessary that if we decided together to develop new knowledge, to make research, to make questions to nature, to see what the nature will answer to us, at that period it was necessary to do it in a secret way. So it's obvious that during one period this aspect of secrecy was a characteristic. Today, it's not necessary anymore. As you said, I am here, we are talking, and you know where we meet. We have public lectures, public meetings, because secrecy is not necessary anymore. At least, fortunately, we live in a part of the planet where we don't need to cover or to hide our movement. But in the past, it was necessary. Today, what I can say is that we are not a secret society, we are not a secret movement. Our structure is completely known. You can find our addresses on the internet. So it's absolutely different if we compare with the past.
Kako biste opisali ukratko, a onda možemo kasnije otići u neke detalje, kakvim se zapravo tipovima znanja, učenja, tečajeva zapravo bavi red ruže i križa, odnosno Rozenkrojcersko društvo? Koja je to, da tako kažemo, vrsta škole? Je li to filozofska škola? Je li to religijska škola? Je li to nekakva alkemijska škola? Je li se tu, kao i obično, najčešće radi o nekakvoj unutarnjoj alkemiji? Drugim riječima, koja je glavna zadaća toga što se tijekom više stoljeća čuvalo, prenosio, učilo i što zapravo onda i današnji polaznici kroz razne nivoje zapravo savladavaju?
Yes, the Rosicrucian tradition has an incredible heritage because it collected a lot of knowledge in the different eras. And the reason why the order exists is not to transfer a truth. We don't have a truth. We are not a religion where we have a truth to reveal. We have a method. It's something different. When you imagine when you walk in a forest or the beautiful sea you have here in Croatia, and then you start to think about life, many questions rise inside us. It's natural. We would like to understand what happened at the end of our life. And if something happened, what will happen existed before we were born. So we have many questions about ourselves. And then during the human history, many possibilities were given to human beings to answer these questions. Religion is one of these possibilities, but we know religions, we know the method. No? Normally you have a book that has some doctrine, some thoughts, and you have to follow these doctrines if you want to be part of that religion. But there are schools also, like Rosicrucian order, where you don't have a real answer to your questions. You have a method to find your own answers. Because we change, the environment, the reality around us change constantly. So what is true for you today, maybe tomorrow it will change because you have changed, I have changed. So it's necessary to understand that we make research, we search constantly. What we do is I would say, we explore the reality. Mm-hmm. We know that the reality is something that is, in some aspects, is hidden. It's not. We can't see the reality as it is. Even science, no, we know that science is discovering day by day. They are discovering other aspects of the reality, and the research we do inside the order is the same thing. You start to use the method, the practice, the exercise, and we can call it as a spiritual path. And then you start to discover your own answers. And the answer is correct when you feel inside yourself that it satisfies you. In that moment in your life, you feel that that answer is good for me. Maybe tomorrow I will ask again and I will change this answer. Because what we do is to explore different levels of reality. This is what we do. Mm-hmm. We can classify it as a form of a philosophy, a form of a kind of a spiritual path. Obviously, when I talk about spirituality, again, I'm not talking about religion. Mm-hmm. It's important that we consider that spirituality comes before religions. Religions were born after the spiritual experience. So I am talking about spiritual experience, not about religion. For this reason, we have Catholics, Protestants, Hebrews, Muslims inside the order, because what we do has nothing against the religion. Mm-hmm. Our path is something different. So we can talk about philosophy. We study philosophy, absolutely. We can talk about a spiritual path, mm-hmm. mystical path, alchemical. Why alchemical path? Because when we talk about alchemy, you know, I am a chemistry, and then when I was taught in the school that alchemists were the old people that wanted to transform metals in gold. Yeah. Yes, but then with Carl Gustav Jung, discovered that the language they used can be a metaphor that describes processes that happen inside us. And this is true. Even the alchemists used to say that you can't transform metals if you don't transform yourself. So we define ourselves also as an alchemical movement. Why? Because we talk about spiritual alchemy. It means that every time you discover something more about yourself, about life, about the reality, you are not the same person as you were one day before. Mm-hmm. And this is like an alchemical transformation. You are another person. It's not a revolution. It's not something that people will not recognize you. But slowly by slowly, you transform yourself by receiving this new knowledge, new answers for your questions. And obviously, you transform yourself. And this is a kind of alchemy. Why alchemy? Because it's a transformation that can go back. You can mm-hmm. go back of what you were yesterday. No. It's done. No? So we can define also that we are a movement that studies the spiritual alchemy. Mm-hmm. It's a way to transform ourselves when we have this new knowledge, new answers about reality, about ourselves, the relationship we have with the environment, with the idea of God, the idea of spirituality. As we develop these ideas, we change. And this is a form of alchemy.
Mm-hmm. Kakve su zapravo te ideje spiritualnosti? Riječ spiritualnost ili duhovnost ima danas jako mnogo značenja za jako mnogo ljudi. U nekim, naravno, religijama i mnogim se povezuje recimo sa molitvom, u nekim drugima je meditacija naglašena. U nekim trećima se pak razmišlja u najsuvremenije doba kao nekakva religija života i prirode i povezivanja sa prirodom. Spominjete naravno ovu alkemiju koju su zapravo svi ti stari majstori od Paracelsusa nadalje zapravo prepoznavali. Ali što u tom smislu zapravo znači ta toliko korištena, a ne baš uvijek jednako shvaćena riječ spiritualnost? Odnosno, mi znamo da recimo budisti meditiraju, reći ću sad pojednostavljeno, da kršćani se mole. Vi ste rekli da se tu nešto uči. Što se unutar rozenkrojcerskog učenja radi po pitanju tog shvaćanja uopće spiritualnosti? Što bi ona zapravo bila?
This is something very interesting, because we should always discuss about the meaning of the words. It's fundamental. When we talk about philosophy, it's absolutely fundamental, because I can use a word and you use the same word, but we give different meanings to this word. So there is no communication. Spirituality for us is an experience. Very easy. It's an experience. It can be a very simple experience or a very strong experience. It's an experience that connects yourself with a different level of reality. For example, we have an idea of what we are. We have an idea. I see my body. If I have a problem, I go to the doctor. So the idea that I am composed by matter is very strong. We see it every day. We are under the Newton's law. No, I have a weight, I can feel it. So the idea that I am something very solid is very strong. And we are educated also in this sense. But at the same time, it sounds strange, because imagine we are a material body, but this body is made by cells, skin cells, bone cells. So we are made by cells, and cells are made by molecules, and molecules are made by atoms, and atoms are made by other structures. So when we go deeper and deeper in the reality of matter, it changes completely. It has nothing to do with the Newtonian laws, matter, and it changed completely. We start to talk about probability, and we start to talk about vibrations. So when we reflect about ourselves and we think that atoms connected with other atoms to form molecules, and molecules connected with other molecules to form cells, cells connected with other cells, and formed a body like this, that is able to think about atoms, to think about the universe. So you start to think, but the universe has created a structure, that is me, to study itself. So when you start to develop this kind of thoughts, it's something that gives the sensation of wonder. This is an experience, spiritual experience, because you start to think about yourself, about the universe, in a completely different way. So spirituality is not only, the religion and other experience that we know, but it can be also a reflection about our nature, what we are.
Interpretacija.
Yes, we interpret everything. All the reality around us is an interpretation, is a way of seeing, is our idea about the reality that can be completely wrong. No? I don't know, for example, our friends that are watching us now, they see these beautiful images, but they can't see the total structure. We can see the total structure. It's a metaphor. It's like we see one part of the reality, but the entire reality, we don't know what is, how it's made. But what we know is that we are a structure that is built by atoms and other smaller structures that is able to think about itself, to think about the universe, to create poems, to create music, to dream, to love, to create a moral sense. This is something absolutely incredible. And when we reflect about this, very simple reflection, this is a spiritual experience. So for us, as Rosicrucians, when we talk about spirituality, it means to make this kind of experience that show us different levels of the reality, different ways to see the reality. And when it appears in front of us, the sense we develop is a sense of wonder, is something that is marvelous, is something that touches us deeply. This is what we mean with spirituality. Obvious, to create this condition, we have some tools. Meditation, as you said, and other cultures also developed their own method. The meditation, prayer, or other exercise, the way we breathe and things like that. There are a long tradition about it that we learn also in our teachings. Because it's obvious, if you create the right conditions, it's easier to experience this kind of experiences.
Da, jer to nisu laka pitanja. Ako se pitamo ko je to ko misli o atomima, sljedeće pitanje je misli li atomi o nama. Ali puno je, kad smo već kod atoma, zapravo jedno, recimo, pitanje koje ljude dotiče jest tko je zapravo čovjek. Mi možemo, recimo, interpretirati ruku na dva načina. Vidimo je, ali možemo isto tako osjećati zatvorenih očiju i ona tada pulsira i postaje nešto sasvim drugo. Neki bezoblični objekt koji mi isto tako osjećamo kao stvarnim, kao i kad ga vidimo. Mnoge tradicije inače znaju pričati o razinama tijela, vanjskih, unutarnjih, kao da recimo se zapravo ljudsko tijelo zgušnjuje prema unutra od vanjskih tijela, a ne zapravo da postoje samo polja koja iz nas zrače. I onda naravno uvijek se dotičemo tog slavnog pitanja smrti, jer u stvari rekao bih da su svi pokušaji reinterpretacije svijeta vezani uz to što će biti sa mnom kad umrem. Odnosno, tko sam ja i hoću li umreti. Pa na koji način rozenkrojcerska tradicija promatra za razliku ili u skladu s nekim drugim tradicijama koliko nas zapravo ima na ovom mjestu? Mi danas imamo uređaje kojima možemo izmjeriti da postojimo mi koji smo elektromagnetski pojas. Pa neki drugi, pa treći. Ali također se priča tu ne završava s obzirom da ovdje imamo posla i sa dijelom svijeta koje je nevidljivi uređajima, pa i nama. Kako biste opisali ljudsko tijelo i njegove razine iz rozenkrojcerske tradicije?
There was a Nobel Prize for Medicine, Joseph Herman Miller, and he said a very funny phrase. He said that we can describe the human beings, the human body, as composed by substances if you think that it's good to use it as a fertilizer. It's interesting because when now science is studying some aspects also that is part of our tradition. Because, as I said, this material structure develops something that is not material, that we call it conscience. It's the ability we have to perceive the reality around us. And we have self-consciousness also, the ability to perceive ourselves perceiving the reality. And this is something very difficult to define. This is the tool that connects us with the reality around us. This conscience also has different levels. And we know that we talked a few minutes earlier about the psychologists and how they develop the techniques and how they study the conscience. Now, neuroscience are studying because they study the brain and things like that. And this is a mystery. There are theories, but you know, when a theory, scientific theory doesn't explain everything, is not a scientific theory. So there are models that try to explain this conscience. But we have to consider that we are talking about a material structure that at a certain point developed this sense, this ability to think, to develop a moral sense.
Što ako je bilo obrnuto? Da je svijest u jednom trenutku stvorila doživljaj tijela?
Okay. There are different theories. We can imagine that the conscience is built, is produced, is the result, is an emergency of the complexity of the body, of the brain. In this case, is an explanation not accepted for all scientists. We can imagine that the universe has a conscience. And this conscience is expressed through the different structures of the nature. A plant, a tree, a mouse, a cat, and a human being. In the different level of experience, of expression of this consciousness is based on the complexity of the structure that can express it. We can think about it. But these are possibilities. I don't want to say that this one is true and the other is wrong. What I say is, what I want to do is to open the field and to say, we have to reflect about it. Maybe I think that my conscience is something produced by my brain, or I can imagine that the universe has a conscience that flows through me, and in this structure, this conscience manifests Claudio, for example. No? So it opens an incredible window What will happen with Claudio when he will die? Because we will die. We are the only beings in this planet that knows that we will die one day. My cats at home, they are free, happy, they don't think about the end of their life.
Imate zanimljivo suvremeno ime, jer Claudio može otići u cloud.
A cloud?
Pa cloud. Danas se u transhumanizmu obećava jedna desnatost u cloudu, pa eto, kao već ste prilagođeni za to. Ali stali smo kod pitanja, znači, tih razina tijela i zapravo naše stvarnosti, odnosno pitanja tko smo mi.
Yes. Yeah. So imagine that this more less material aspect of our nature, we can imagine that is limited on this body, or we can imagine that is in some aspect is connected with a different reality. It can explain, for example, a very common experience in the humanity, very common telepathy, for example. It's absolutely natural. You have the mother that is connected with the son, and the son suffers an accident, and immediately, at the same time of the accident happened, the mother feels that something happened with her son. How is it possible? Okay, if it happens once or twice in the human history, we can say, oh, okay, it's nothing. But it is frequent. We know it happens frequently. I think everybody felt lived this experience at least once in our lives. So we have to imagine, how can it be possible that I feel, I know what is happening with another human being far from me? Not because the information travels in the space, but instantly, in the same time, it happens and I know. How is it possible? The only possibility is that in some aspect I am connected with that person. We are connected. So there is no distance between us, but we are part of the same reality. So if we start to think about ourselves in this way, it's also a way to change the way we think about the relationship we have with the environment, with other people, with our parents, when we go to our job, because things happen for a reason. And when we see these results, it means that there is a reason. It's not for nothing. It's something important that is showing us that the reality is something different. So it's possible also that this sensation I have about myself can be expanded. There are specific exercises to experience this effect. And this is part of the human history also. It's not something new. We have thousand experience that you can find in literature and or even people that you know that lived this experience. For example, there are doctors, physicians study the near-death experiences. No, for example, the person suddenly see the body, can hear what people are saying, but the body is there. How can I see my body there? How can I see what they are saying in another room? It's strange, no? So they are studying because this experience is very common. I don't know here, but for example, in Italy, when you go to an hospital for a surgery, they ask you to sign a document to declare if you live an experience like this, to say that you live, to declare if you feel free to. Sometimes people doesn't like to talk, but they ask you, please, declare if you lived some kind of experience like this. What is interesting is that we call this near-death experience. But honestly, if your heart is not beating, if you don't breathe, and if your brain stopped, you are death.
Yeah, this is death experience.
Yeah, it's death experience. You are not near death. It's true that medicines, they found the techniques to change the process, to stop the process. No, fortunately, they can save many lives in the world. But when you don't breathe, if your heart is stopped and your brain is stopped, is not working, you are death. You are ready to go to the cemetery. So how is it possible that in that condition you have this experience full of details? It means that there is something in us that is not strictly connected with the body. And again, We think about ourselves as matter, solid matter. But in reality, we are made by different levels, different structures. And some of these structures can, how can I say, it's not correct to say it can move or can travel in the space, but it seems that maybe this is the word that can express better. It can live experience even outside of the body.
Zanimljivo je što unutar kvantne fizike postoji izraz koji se zove kvantna spregnutost, quantum entanglement. I zapravo opisuje upravo situaciju koju ste vi prije opisali kada se radi o tome da recimo nečije dijete odjednom mu se nešto dogodi, pa majka trenutno to zna. Znači u onom mikrosvijetu, svijetu sitnosti, dvije čestice koje su jednom bile dio istog sustava se bez obzira na privid prostora između njih, da tako kažem, trenutno su u komunikaciji cijelo vrijeme. Međutim, nismo naučeni da takve spregnutosti postoje u materijalnom svijetu za koje nam se ovako vidljivo čini da je ipak udjeljen prostorom, vremenom, ali izgleda da na nekoj razini bi zapravo nekakva empatična spregnutost možda zapravo bila nekakav odgovor na ta sva pitanja vezano uz te trenutke telepatije, kada nekog pomisliš pa te nazove i tako dalje, što je vrlo zanimljivo zapravo za razmišljati, jer ako su dvije čestice spojene, a svaka je spojena s još nekim drugima, možda su sve čestice u svemiru zapravo spregnute u jedan zapravo sustav koji nekako harmonično skupa rezonira. Što se priča, evo, pričali smo za ovim stolom i sa ljudima koji stižu iz tradicije koja govori o onom razinama međustanja prije smrti i poslije smrti i bilo je različitih interpretacija. Evo, otvorili ste vrata smrti. Kako bi u rozenkrojcerskom učenju bilo rečeno što se zbiva zapravo s čovjekom poslije smrti? Naravno, odmah smo u problemu, još ni ne znamo tko je čovjek, ali koji se tu zapravo procesi zbivaju? Što kažu te višestoljetne tradicije?
Yeah, I think it's important that we, again, we talk about an idea, but it's not a dogma. Every time we talk about a reality that we can't touch, we can't see, we can feel it, but we can't describe, because when we talk, for example, you're talking about quantum physics. It's a good example because quantum physics is very much used today. Everybody wants to explain life with quantum physics, but quantum physics work in a specific field of the reality, not for all the reality. No? But when you talk about quantum physics, it's difficult because the normal vocabulary doesn't express what you see. You need a very high level of mathematics and intuition to try to understand what happened, because in that level of the reality, the logic we are used to doesn't work. So it's very difficult to understand. It was, for example, the difficulty Albert Einstein had with quantum mechanics. He had some difficulties because the logic we used, the Aristotle logic, was completely, was not working in this level of reality. You see something completely different. And the vocabulary has limits to express this reality. So when we want to talk about after-death experience, what happened when I will die? We are talking about a level of reality where the vocabulary is not enough to define. What we can say is to suggest, because it's like I don't know, you live a beautiful experience. I will say in a very simple words. You go to a restaurant and you have a very nice meal. Very nice. And then you come and you say, Claudio, you know, that restaurant is very nice because I eat, I don't know, a pizza, a very good pizza. You can use 10,000 words to express what you felt. But I will never understand the intensity of your experience because you had the experience. So the words help us to communicate and to give an idea about what we are talking. But it can't define when we are talking about a level of experience that is another level of reality. Okay. What we can say is that this aspect of our nature, that is the personality, what I am, the aspect that I know about myself. Maybe my wife knows, maybe my daughters know, something very, very inside me, something that is deep part that characterizes me. This part, based on our tradition, is not lost when you die. At the same time, it's difficult to say because it's not that you remain as yourself, no, because it would be wonderful. Claudio remains Claudio for the eternity. No, Claudio is absorbed by this conscience. What we can use a metaphor. If you have a prisma, no, like you have a prisma and then you have a ray of light, and then the light is scattered in different colors. These colors are the different wavelengths of the light, the white light. But these different colors are inside the white light, are part of the light. So when it passes through the prisma, you separate, and then you have the personality of the red, of the yellow, of the green. And when you take out the prisma, it becomes white light again. We can use this metaphor to say that we have our personality, we develop a certain experience. When our body is not able to maintain the energy of life inside, we die. But all these aspects is absorbed again in this universal conscience. It's not lost, but at the same time, we can't say that I remain Claudio. No? So it's inside the white light, and if there is another prisma, this color inside the white light can express again itself. So it's...
U stvari je jednostavno. Više te nema, ali te ipak ima. Kada pričamo o društvu generalno, što bi unutar rozenkrojcerske tradicije značila riječ utopija? Mi smo tijekom povijesti mogli vidjeti mnogobrojne, to bi čak nazvao društvenim mentalnim eksperimentima, gdje su razni autori pokušavali konstruirati jednu viziju u raznim knjigama koja bi bila idealno društvo, uvijek na temelju neke pretpostavke. Danas zapravo živimo u vrijeme kad tih starih utopija nema toliko, postoji još jedino ovako na tržištu ova transhumanistička utopija, u kojoj bi zapravo svi trebali biti na neki način vječno zdravi, bez rada da nekako žive u nekakvom metaverzumu i na neki način da bi transhumanizam riješio svih onih nedaća životnih, zdravlje, glad, naravno u procesu bi ih riješio i nekakvih ljudskih osobina poput druženja sa drugim ljudima ili svrsishodnog rada, tako da tu utopiju neki opisuju kao distopiju, ovisno s koje se perspektive gleda. Ali što zapravo bi značilo unutar ove spiritualno-alkemijske, filozofske tradicije i sada na početku 21. stoljeća, ako je ta ideja uopće i ostala nepromijenjena, što bi zapravo bila ta riječ utopija unutar tako, evo, da kažemo, rozenkrojcerske škole?
Utopia is a word, it's a Greek word, or the origin is Greek. It's utopos, it means a place that doesn't exist. And this is important, a place that doesn't exist. And this is a word that during the human history, it changed the meaning also. It was applied in different fields and it changed the meaning. When we talk about utopia, we are talking about a condition that is inside our heart. It's something that is part of us. It's not a place you find in the map. And this is the reason why we have wars, because, and we know the story of utopia. Every time we try to realize it on Earth, we had wars, we have revolutions, we have people dying, people suffering, a lot of pain. How can it be an utopia? When we talk about utopia, we say that we feel inside, everybody feels inside, that we can have a different condition of life. We can find a place where the peace is the only rule, where people can live in a fraternal way. We feel it. But the problem is that it's not on the map, this place. This place is inside us. And so the travel, the trip, the journey to go to this promised land is an inner journey. It's a land that is calling us. This land is saying, come, because you are part of this land. And this land is an inner journey And then we should understand that we have to develop this travel, this journey, traveling inside us. In this way, we can be then in the promised land everywhere in the planet, everywhere, because it's an inner condition. Every time we try to find, if we think that, I don't know, Jerusalem is the promised land, you see what happened. We fight because we are convinced that Jerusalem is on the map. It's not on the map. It's inside us, Muslims, Hebrews, Christians. We have Jerusalem inside us. So the journey is an inner journey. If we don't understand it, every time we want to realize it on earth, but it's obvious that if people start to work in this sense, we can live better. Because it's the result. The result is that I start to treat people with respect, to treat people with affection. It's because it's the reaction, the reflection, the result of this inner journey. So in the way we talk about utopia is this way, is an inner journey to find our own promised land.
Sve duhovne tradicije na svijetu zapravo imaju i nekakav, da kažemo, svoj iscijeliteljski, što bi se reklo, healerski dio, što zapravo proizlazi iz shvaćanja, a rekao bih da možda to i nije samo shvaćanje, nego i da ima tu prilično istine, da zapravo mnoge naše fizičke bolesti imaju početak negdje u našim uvjerenjima, u našem duhu, u nekakvim, kako bi se to suvremeno reklo, unutarnjim konfliktima. U tom smislu zapravo se ne možeš baviti pitanjem što je čovjek, a da nemaš i neki način kako da nekakve neravnoteže možda tu čovjek, da li savjetom, da li nekom tehnikom, pomaže čovjeku, s obzirom da se više ne radi o nekakvom materialističkom liječenju, onom što bismo danas zvali. Pa ima li i rozenkrojcerska tradicija unutar sebe neke, da to tako nazovem, terapeutske tehnike i kakve?
We have an older tradition that comes from the Essenian movement in the Palestine in the 1st and 2nd century after Christ. There were this community in the Palestine, and they developed these techniques, and we have this heritage. When we talk about health, it's important what you have said. It's very important. Even the World Health Organization defined health in a different way. In the past, health was, okay, I have no fever, my blood pressure is okay, your exams of the blood are perfect, you are in a good health. No, I don't feel good. I'm sad, I'm depressed. So, but it was not considered part of the health. If your body is, material body is okay, you are in good health. Now, the World Health Organization, they define health in a completely different way. They talk about spiritual condition, about the way you feel also, not only the body. In some aspects, it recognizes these different levels that compose us. This is very important. So it's true that it's important to maintain the health. It doesn't mean that we will have health for the entire life. We can become sick. We had a terrible experience recently with COVID or other diseases. We know the world is full of, if you are in touch, if you have a chemical substance and you eat, you can have big problems. So it's natural that we will never have the health for the entire life. But we have some rules that we can follow. We have some techniques that we can follow to help our body and these other levels of reality that composes us to maintain an equilibrium. So when we have this equilibrium, the result is the health. For example, it can be very easy. If I have, it sounds even childish, if you have good friends and you feel that they love you, they like you, they are interested in you, you feel good. If you are alone at home because you have 1,000 friends on the internet, but you are alone and you are waiting that they do this or that about what you write, you don't feel good. You don't feel this harmony. But when you have a friend that goes to your home and shake your head, say, how are you? Oh, because I haven't news from you. Recently, I was thinking on you. You feel something positive. So it means that we are composed by these different levels. And it's important that we take care of all these levels. The body, always what we eat, how much water we drink, the movement, we know this. But there are other aspects, energetical aspects, the psychological aspects that must be considered also to maintain this level of harmony. And we study this aspect. We have 1 degree inside our school, our order, that is dedicated on these therapeutic teachings. It's used it's an heritage that helps us to maintain the health.
Evo, za ovih zadnjih par minuta, što to znači? Nije da se samo u rozenkrojcerskoj tradiciji mogla čuti rečenica ljubav je univerzalni zakon. Ali ona je svakako shvaćena na mnoge načine, pogotovo zato jer, kao što ste sami rekli, nemamo ni definicije za neke riječi. Pa eto, ljubav je jedna od tih riječi koja ima beskonačno puno definicija. Što bi to zapravo značilo u tradiciji, znači reda ruže i križa, da je ljubav univerzalni zakon?
I will explain with a story, and it's a true story, because it's in the biography of Werner Heisenberg, one of the most important physics, one of the father of the quantum physics last century. Heisenberg, in his biography, titled Physics and Beyond, Beyond is interesting, Physics and Beyond, Werner Heisenberg, he describes when he was 20 in Germany after the First World War. He describes Germany as a country completely in chaos. It was a revolution, people shouting in the streets. And then he says that the German youth, it was a movement of students in that period, decided to organize a meeting in a city close to Munich, 100 kilometers from Munich, called Brunn. Brunn has a castle, and they decided to organize a meeting in this castle. And then Heisenberg went there. And this meeting was called to discuss the future of Germany. What can we do after this terrible experience, after the war? And how can we rebuild the society? And the way we will rebuild it will be important only for Germany or for the entire planet. What can we do? So they prepared a stage in the garden of the castle. And Heisenberg described this experience. Every person that used to go to the stage described a completely different order for the society. And Heisenberg was hearing, and he says, at a certain point, he said, I felt like a pain inside me, a pain, because he said, there is no order in the nature. Each person talking described a different order. So at the end, there is no order in the universe. And he said, I felt it as like a pain inside me. Then he says, at a certain point, a window of the castle opened, and a young man appeared with a violin and started to play the Chaconne of Bach. Chaconne. And Heisenberg says, after the first notes, I felt like a cold wind passing through me. And suddenly, I could see the order in the nature. I knew that there is an order in the nature, not because somebody told me, not because I read it, because I felt. And that moment I knew that there was an order in the nature. And it's the same order that all philosophies, all religions, all philosophies try to teach human beings. In that moment I knew that it exists.
Drugim riječima,
This is an incredible experience. This experience that Heisenberg is describing of this order in the nature is what we call love.
Drugim riječima, red možeš osjetiti, ali ga ne možeš stvoriti kroz zbog previše scenarija. Ali eto, kad već smo danas upoznali red ruže i križa, neka i završimo ovu emisiju sa time što zapravo jest red. Gospodine Mazzucco, hvala vam i do možda nekog sljedećeg druženja. Doviđenja i sretan put.
Thank you so much. It's been a big pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.
Evo, hvala i vama na pažnji. Potraga za mističnim spoznajama stara je koliko i čovjek. Uvijek je to individualni put kojeg se može prolaziti na najrazličitije načine i naravno pod raznim imenima. Danas mnoga znanja više nisu toliko tajna jer i svijet se promijenio. Vremena se doduše mijenjaju, ali mnoge društva i institucije traju stoljećima. Večeras još samo u znaku ruže i križa. Laku noć.